What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is a get to know me. We're looking at values and beliefs. It is essentially an expansion on the last one we made last month, which was personality and identity. I know in that one I did sort of spend a little bit more time on the personality side of things, looking at different personality tests, etc. This one's going to be more of an expansion on, obviously, the two main things being values and beliefs, and sort of how those intertwine themselves into identity, and so in that way it's an expansion. Starting off with values, since it's first in the title, there are 4 core ones. Now you can, I think the reason these are called values is because, they bring some sort of worth to your life, and they are they are also known as the 4 wealths. 2 seconds to we're going to come up with it. Yes, 4 types of wealth. Right, so we've got money, status, time, and health. And if I reorder them as a sense of status, time, health, money, we do have our 4-card tarot spread that I've based my resolutions on. And so using that same form, and playing a fun little game where I've given them all F words, our status would be our foundation. Because status, it says here, is social wealth, so this is going to be your relationships, essentially. Your support network, where you would, in a metaphorical sense, build your house. And you obviously would need a strong foundation for that before being able to build up who you are on top of that. So we're looking at our foundation here. It comprises of what I think the 3 core relationship types are, those being familial, friendly, and flirty. With obviously familial being family, and not just like mum, dad, and siblings, but also aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents. If you're lucky enough to have them, nieces, nephews, children, godchildren, grandchildren, the whole everybody that shows up at your family reunion for your 60th birthday or whatever. That's who we're talking about there. The second one, the friendly one, obviously being more looking here at platonic relationships, and then our flirty ones looking at our dating lives and our romantic relationships. We then have our time wealth, which is also known as our freedom. Within that is your function, and we can sort of, if you work with me for a second, I've given it the word of function because it's essentially what you do within the whole system of society. What is your core function for, and your main contribution to society as a whole? What do you do? And that would obviously then be your job, your career, your occupation, whatever you want to call it. We're looking there at your paid work. The next one would be faculty. There was a particular reason that it was faculty. Quickly looking it up. But essentially, while this is loading, it's essentially, here we are. So a faculty is an ability, natural or required, for a particular kind of action. And by that definition, we're looking at study. Your ability to acquire and develop those abilities to be able to do those particular actions. Now, whether your study is an actual, tertiary education, university, college, bachelor's degree, doctorate, master's, whatever, one of the more official ones, or whether it's simply just an apprenticeship, learning while you're on the job, professional development days, all these sorts of things. It might even just be that, you want to get your first aid certificate, or you already work in a coffee shop, that they're open at night, and that at night they, sell alcohol, and you want to be able to get some night shifts, so you do a responsible service of alcohol certificate. That's still study, so that fits in there. And the last one is your fun, your free time, your leisure activities, your hobbies, all that sort of stuff. What it is you're doing when you're not either studying or working to make an income. Our third one is our form, quite literally our physical form. And I can actually break this down into sort of the 5 elements, if you bear with me. We're going to group emotional and mental and sort of our soul and spirit together, so that our physical is our fitness, and obviously you can break that down further to like, your diet, your exercise, all that sort of stuff, the amount of sleep that you get, and when you sleep, and all that sort of stuff that contributes to whether or not you are feeling physically healthy or not. All that's in there. Your fulfillment, which would come down to your mental and emotional health. Are you weighed down by traumas and mental illnesses and all these other sorts of things, or do you have healthy coping mechanisms of being able to do that, and sort of progress through life reasonably unhindered by those sorts of things. That comes into there. And then our faith. Obviously the first thing that would pop into your mind when I say faith is religion, but it's not necessarily just that. And obviously with those last two, they can tie in very much to things like our hobbies and our friends and those sorts of more elective sorts of things. Like, you might have chosen your job and where you wanted to work, but you didn't necessarily choose who it was that you specifically worked with on any given day. And so, yeah. But your fulfillment can definitely tie into your hobbies, because you've obviously doing those because they make you feel better on that emotional, mental level, and your family and friends. I would say more here family. Sometimes it's family relationships, but in other cases you might be making friends because of your particular faith, and where it is that you go, like where it is that your place of worship is. But it's not just, as I said, it's not just religion. For instance, there's, like for instance, Wicca is not really an established religion, because other than sort of 8 times a year, with the different Sabbats and sort of the way that we marry each other. Aside from those particular things, you could be a pagan and call yourself pagan the same way I do, but the way you practice might be completely different. The gods or idols or whatever that you pray to and believe in could be completely different. I mean, I was mentioning this to my friend who is also sort of pagan / Wiccan. Her whole thing at the moment, or at least for as long as I've known that she's Wiccan, she's always worshipped the Norse gods, and she practices the Sabbats according to the seasons, which is the way that the Northern Hemisphere does it. Whereas I will invoke Celtic gods, but that's not necessarily where my belief lies. To me, they're more embodiments of ideas, you know. So I might call on Lou, who's an embodiment of the arts and creativity, or I'll call on the Dagda, who's an embodiment of wisdom. You know, during my Sabbats. But what I'm really sort of praying to and worshipping, in inverted commas, is sort of my ancestors and my heritage, and sort of getting in touch with sort of where I came from, to understand how I got to where I am in the present. In a ye old long story of human history, how did I get here at this time, at this place? So yeah, that's sort of that bit. And the last bit is money, our finances, and the 3 bits I can separate this down into to give us a full total of 12. Are our funds, how much actual currency do we have in our bank accounts, our fortune, which would be any other sort of assets that we will put on, you know, tax forms or insurance forms and that sort of thing, which, you know, would be, so your fortune would be things like your car, your house, your, you know, sort of the essential things that serve a purpose, as far as your survival. You know, how fortunate are you? You have a car or a mode of transportation. You have shelter. You have food on the table. Because obviously, if you look at those things as being your fortune, you can be like, okay, yeah, cool. I now understand how much more fortunate than somebody else I am, because this is my fortune, the necessities to life. And then last but not least is the furnishings. So within your house, you know, like the style of clothes that you wear are furnishings. Your actual furniture is furnishings. You know, like, it might sound crazy, especially in this day and age, but you don't actually need a TV or a phone, or a computer. And I know that at the moment, you know, with the way technology is going, like, they're becoming more and more like essential to being able to navigate society as a whole, but they're not actually, you know, from a survival standpoint, they're not essential. You can still go and do work without having a phone call, or checking emails. You can still do work. Moving on to beliefs, now that we've sort of put that out the way, and now that I know that those are the values, and that I've been basing my resolutions on them, do expect the resolution check at the end of the month to be a little bit different from past ones, because I'll be updating it all. But on to beliefs here. I'll try to stay as far away from political things as I possibly can, but realistically, if you have a particular view on something, chances are somebody else has a different view on that same issue or that same subject or that same topic, whatever you want to choose for your word. And then as soon as you guys start discussing it, you are having, whether or not you bring actual politicians into the mix, you are having a political debate. That's just the nature of these things. So I'm going to try and these are my beliefs. So if I touch on the bits that were in my identity video to start with. Age. Provided you are working within the confines of the law, age is just a number to me. And I sort of mentioned the within the confines of the law bit, particularly for like, you know, sexual and romantic relationships, but otherwise, you know, I am open to having platonic relationships with anybody and everybody, as long as they will provide me the due respect that I believe I am worthy of, and obviously in return I will give you the same amount. Where that sort of, for me, starts to become murky and is sort of one of the reasons I think people find me a little bit difficult to deal with at times, is when they just, without letting me know why, so that, you know, I can't improve on myself, they just start disrespecting me. It's all well and good if you have a legitimate reason, but I would love to know what it is so that I can work on it. And if you're not going to tell me and you're just going to start disrespecting me for some reason that I have no idea why, you can bet your ass I'm going to turn around and start doing the exact same back to you. I might not do the exact same actions as you, I might not, you know, I might try to still be civil with you in person, but that does not mean that I, you know, appreciate sort of the general disrespect that is being given to me. And there have been people in the past who I no longer talk to that have tried doing that, and it's like, okay, if this is how you want to be, then you can take all of your disrespect and leave, because there's no space in my life for it. Our behaviour and our attitudes, so there's a phenomenal differentiation here. Your behaviour, I mean, if we really want to sort of structure it in a hierarchy, we've got values, beliefs, attitudes, behaviours. So you obviously start off with your 4 core beliefs, which then obviously splinter off into each of their different sort of sub-values, I suppose. Those then inform your beliefs, you know, like your beliefs on how family should work, how friendship should operate, what you look for in a romantic partner, just to sort of focus on that one area. That then trickles down into, you know, those then become your attitudes, and then your behaviour is sort of the physical manifestation of these conceptual ideas. So the way I behave is obviously informed by my attitude towards a particular subject. And then obviously this gets really fun when you've got, you know, this value and this value crossing over into this belief, and then that belief informing a particular attitude. And so obviously that would indicate one behaviour, but then the topic at hand also involves other things, maybe from some of the same values, and you might end up having two conflicting beliefs, creating two conflicting attitudes, which would obviously emanate into two conflicting behaviours meeting at that particular situation. And that's where it can sort of be a little bit tricky to navigate. I hope I'm not being too profound or sounding too crazy, because I know there's a very fine line between the two. Social status and your class is sort of next. Again, it's a phrase, construct. It's a construct. You are no more or less worthy of having the exact same opportunities and privileges and benefits in life than anybody else. And I'm glad I mentioned that now, because the next couple are things like disability, again, gender and gender identity, again, race, ethnicity and nationality, again, sexuality, whether that's, you know, your sexual identity, your sexual identity or your sexual expression or your whatever. Again, all of these things fit into that. You know, when you look at those, you can really find where the minority groups are. At the moment, even age is starting to join that conversation. The whole, you know, millennials ruin everything thing that the boomers have going on. And then obviously the millennials they got tired of being told that they ruin everything, flipping around with the okay boomer, sit down, put your teeth back in and put your glasses back on, your hearing aids in, and all that sort of, you know, ripping on the fact that they lose everything, including in some cases their memory, but that's not what we're going to make fun of. I can rip on teeth, ears, and eyes because, yeah, my own father has dentures and glasses, and getting his attention sometimes when he's watching TV is a nightmare. But yeah, I'm gonna draw the line at picking on memory loss, because that shit's just heartbreaking to have to go through. Knowledge and experience, I think this one is sort of a subset of the age category, but I'm gonna put it on its own thing because it's worthy of its own topic of conversation. It's one thing to have the whole you need to respect your elders versus the I'll respect anyone who respects me, you know, regardless of age debate. It's a completely other thing to expect people to be able to have 2 years experience you know, within a particular industry or doing a particular occupation, when you're not also willing to provide the opportunities for younger people to get that experience so they can apply for those other jobs. You know, like, no one's asking you to keep them on past that, you know, 2 years sort of thing, but at that point they've got the, you know, that 2 years experience within being a diesel mechanic, for instance, that they can just go and apply for all diesel mechanic jobs, and it's not gonna really sort of get in their way, and that's, I think, at the moment one of the things that people are finding very difficult. I've then got things like language. If you speak a language that isn't the sort of national language, I'm using it inverted commas there because a lot of westernized countries at the moment are very multicultural. You know, I don't think you'd find too many multicultural countries in the Middle East or in Africa, for instance. But Europe, the UK, the United States, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, they're all pretty multicultural. I mean, the downside to that is that for the most part, those countries and those places were taken from the people who originally lived there. Whether that's Native American or Australian Aboriginal, or even in the case of the Celts, the Gauls, the Turks, the Norse, whatever. Now, for the most part, the European ones still live there, for the most part. But the Roman Empire sure made it difficult to distinguish who was who for a while there. And it's one of the reasons we don't like the Romans over here. Not a fan. I think the only thing that they contributed to society really was recording what the Celts did, because without them I would be completely lost for where even start looking. Then of course, to sort of finish it off, rituals and traditions. Traditions might be family traditions that you have. It might be a case of you and your friends have a tradition of once a month getting together on a Friday night and having a games night. And your rituals might be that to start it off, everybody has a shot of vodka together to celebrate friendship or whatever. So rituals and traditions kind of sit together, but they are again also different. Moving on to other things that I have a strong belief in. Climate change. At the moment, I have, and am continuing to. I don't know if that bag there is a red cycle bag. It's one of those 15-cent bags you get from Woolworths. It's a soft plastic, and on the back of certain like snack wraps and stuff. I know that like Allen's Lollies and Doritos, for instance, have it on the back. They have a little red cycle symbol on it. You can put them all in that one bag, and then you take them back, and at the front of your Woolworths or your Coles, I don't know if any other shops at the moment offer these bins, but there'll be a big bin you can sort of put or a cage or something that you can put those bags excuse me, and you can put them back into, and they get reused. Not in the sense of like they send that same chip back to be filled up again. No, it's a case of like they go back and they are specifically used to make new packaging. The return and earn, where you get 10 cents per bottle, is another one. You can do that with your it'll stay on the little wrapper around the side. Like I've got one here, if I can show you. So on this Powerade bottle, right above the barcode, if I can get the glare to go away, it's got the little 10-cent symbol there, and then next to it says refund at collection points in participating state or territory of purchase, which means that if you're just getting that as part of your weekly shop, once a month you might take it down and put it in a little hole. I know last time I went and did that, which was only it was within the last week, we ended up, because I do it sort of once a month, but we'd ended up with $14.60 I think was the grand total. and that's plastic bottles like that, and like Coke bottles and stuff. And I'm not just talking your 600ml, your big 1.25 litre bottles can also be returned. I believe 2 litre bottles might also qualify. I'm not entirely sure on that, don't quote me. But yeah, basically what I'm getting at is I'm doing my part. I'm really trying to whenever I have a piece of rubbish in my hand that I no longer have use for, it goes through like a 12-point, like, can it be composted, can it be recycled, can it be returned and earned, can it be just put into like the yellow bin, you know, can it be this or that or whatever, before finally at the end of the line it's still in my hand and like, okay, well, it must obviously be just garbage and therefore go in that bin. So that's sort of how I conduct that, trying to do my part. Education, again, education's I have both my parents and my older brother work in education, and obviously I myself am currently studying while also applying to do another course next year. So education's a big thing right now in my personal life, and the old system that was set up like 100 or so years ago to sort of teach children sort of essentially what was expected of them in, you know, factory work or within a company. You know, you come in at 9 o'clock, you sit at your desk, lunchtime's at 12, and then at 3 or 5 you can go home. You know, and like the standardized testing just needs to go away. It needs to go away. Yeah, we got a couple of opinions on education. Gender equality, again, I mean, I talked about gender before. Healthcare, big one at the moment. Yeah, big one at the moment. Especially with anti-vaxxers just becoming more and more prominent as the days progress. And especially now that there's like the Delta variant as well, a lot more people are like, oh well, if this, you know, if getting vaccinated isn't going to protect me against the new variant, what's the point? So that you don't catch the old variant and start spreading that around again. I know that people have either gotten it and had symptoms or not had symptoms, or you know, haven't gotten it, and therefore in the case of haven't gotten it yet, like me, thankfully, it means that I could either be asymptomatic or I haven't actually gotten it yet, and either way, like either strain for me could be potentially lethal. So get yourself vaccinated. Like, we can worry about whether or not Bill Gates is playing live action Sims at a later date. Just get vaccinated. Okay, I don't care about your conspiracy theories. Just do it. Immigration is an interesting one, because obviously within that we can open up the whole broader concept of like colonization, refugees and asylum seekers, all that sort of very interesting one to look at. I may end up just making a full video on my thoughts on each of these, depending on whether or not you guys actually want to see them. Overpopulation, whether that's, you know, for a specific part of Earth or just Earth in general, because I don't think it really matters where you are on Earth at this point in time. We are overpopulated. And be the ways of helping to essentially limit the number of people allowed on Earth. And I am by no means saying that we need to just have a big old random Thanos snapping cull. That is not what I'm suggesting at all. But yeah, there needs to be a way that we can, for future generations, limit the amount of population growth in the future, so that at the very least, while we're working towards greener energies, etc., we're not adding to the problem. Because yeah, overpopulation and climate change really go hand in hand. Unemployment and poverty would sort of be a big one. Violence and war is the big one, and then childhood obesity as well. I think there's yeah, that again can sort of be contributed to sort of the commercial effects of overpopulation, because there's more mouths to feed, so there's more being done as far as food production is concerned, which means that there is essentially more food on the market, and then if people are well enough off, or if things are being sold cheaply enough, regardless of their health benefits, those are then being fed to children, in probably not a healthy amount. There's a big social issue right there, connecting about 4 or 5 different individual ones as well. And then while we're trying to sort of deal with that, we've also got the social ramifications of things like immigration, racism, gender equality, all that sort of stuff. And then at the moment we're also being just bent over with no consent by COVID. So fun times to be diagnosed with anxiety and depression. But that's all I've got for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're new here, please hit the subscribe button and that notification bell as well, if you want to be notified when I upload new videos. If you liked this one, the big old thumbs up. I will leave my full list of everything that I spoke about in the description down below. Let me know any thoughts. Do you want to see full videos on some of these things? Let me know in the comments down below. And until next time, guys, keep your head screwed on.